That's it. Those T-shirts will sell, and you're welcome to take them. Have you ever seen the logo for Alabama, the Crimson Tide elephant? Occasionally, you get that kind of sense of like, it's on fire, it's passionate, it's got new ideas. Little things like that are very, very important. And if your motto is going to be "Don't be an ass," you know what that means? That means you're fighting back. It means you're not constantly retreating from these people. It means, hey, what's the matter with you? Are you people really that stupid to believe that you can put 40 million people on health care that weren't on health care before and increase their benefits and it will cost less? You really are an ass. Don't vote like an ass anymore, please. Start thinking about these things. It's easy. It's actually really easy. I don't know if it's going to get done, but it's easy. But let's talk about us. Let's talk about the Tea Party. Now, I have to be crystal clear about this. Crystal clear. When I come to a place like this and I see the Declaration of Independence and Benjamin Franklin and some unnamed individual who started some unnamed party over here, Thomas Jefferson, obviously, I know what this means. I know what they mean. I know who they are, I know what they did, and I know what it means. But young people today haven't got a clue. That's not accidental. Remember civics? Everybody takes civics class in high school? They don't teach civics anymore. They don't even teach cursive writing anymore. Somebody said to me at an event once, you know why they're not teaching cursive anymore? I said, no, why? Is it just because they don't use it anymore? This may be a conspiracy theory, I don't know. But they said, no, if you don't teach cursive, then you can't read this. You can't read it. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary. No, I have no idea what that means. It's gibberish to me. So, when we're talking about young people, and we want to appeal to young people, and we talk about the Tea Party, we're among friends here, right? I'm just telling you what I think as a media person, as maybe the only person in Mordor. You know what I am? I'm a vampire who kills other vampires. I'm a day walker. I come from them. I know who they are. I know how they work. I know all the skills. I know all the techniques. So I'm telling you from the inside here what's really going on. One vampire to you normal human beings. Here's what the other vampires think. When young people are talking about politics and you say we're the Tea Party, the first thing you hear, first thing we hear is, what is the Tea Party? Well, the Tea Party was when a bunch of really brave guys got together, dressed up as Indians, went on board a ship, and chucked a bunch of tea in the river because they were protesting a 1 penny tax. Awesome. You talk to young people that what's a Tea Party, they think a Tea Party is a bunch of old women sitting around talking about dog shows. And that's the truth. And when I see the Gadsden flag, I saw them outside, a lot of them. Don't tread on me. What does that mean? It means leave me alone. But young people don't see that. They say, what? What is this? And I'll often go to Tea Party events, and I'll especially love it when I'll see somebody who comes dressed up as Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or Ben Franklin or something, and they're wearing the waistcoats and the powdered wig and the tri-corner hat, and maybe they've got a musket. And I think, oh, that's awesome. I know what that represents. But young people see this and they say, you want us to move into our future by joining a group of people who are wearing costumes from 250 years ago? You out of your mind? This is branding. This is what branding is. Now, if you can get them to listen, you can do some interesting things with our existing branding, but I want to talk about changing the branding. Excuse me again. Here's something interesting about George Washington. I've had a chance to say this to college students. It gets quite a rise out of them. I'll say to a college student or somebody younger than that, you see George Washington and you see an old man with a funny-looking set of clothes and a frilled shirt and a tri-corner hat and a musket. But you may not know this. In fact, you may not know this. But during the Revolutionary War, George Washington sent a sort of an undercover message to a tailor in London. And he wrote a message to this very fashionable tailor and said, I would like to purchase 4 waistcoats in the latest fashion, in the most popular colors currently on the market, and I'd like the buttons to be as ornate as possible without appearing ostentatious. Do you know why that is? You know why he did that? Because George Washington was the best dressed man on planet Earth. He was the best dressed man on planet Earth. So when I talk to college students, when I say if George Washington were standing here today, George Washington wouldn't be wearing a waistcoat and frilly shirt and a tri-cornered hat and a powdered wig. If George Washington were standing next to me today, the best dressed man in the world would be standing here, 6'4" by the way or something. He'd be standing here, be wearing a $12,000 Armani suit. He'd have $900 shoes. He'd have $800 haircut, and he'd be holding an AR-15 with a laser designated red dot sight because he was a deadly swinging dude, is who George Washington was. He's the best dressed man in the world. He would look like an Armani model here. He'd be wearing the best clothes in the world. And you just say that little tiny thing and kids start going, oh, I never really thought of it that way. I always thought of him as an old guy. No, he wasn't an old guy. He was a giant. He was elegant. He wanted to look the part. He wanted to be absolutely money. He didn't want to be flashy. And he was a deadly warrior with a weapon. The musket was the deadliest weapon they had back then. That's who we like. People start thinking differently. So when you start talking about the tri-corner hats and the flags and all that other stuff, means something to me, means something to you because we know what it means. But more and more and more today, young people don't. They don't. They can't connect to it. They can't connect the costume to the ideas. So I was at an event in Arizona one day, and I was talking about this stuff. And in the question and answer period afterwards, it was in Phoenix. A young woman, really, really cool. She's probably going to be governor of Arizona one day. She said, I'd like to start a Tea Party group at my high school, and what do you think I ought to do? And I said, well, the first thing I would do is I would not call it a Tea Party group, and I wouldn't call it a Republican group. If I were you, I'd put out a flyer that said that on Wednesday afternoon at 4:30 in room 202, there will be the first meeting of the Rebel Alliance. And she said, okay. What does that mean? I said, well, never use the word Republican, never use the word Democrat, don't say liberal or conservative, say it will be the first meeting of the Rebel Alliance. And if somebody comes up to you and says, what is the Rebel Alliance? Say to them, I don't think you could handle it. In fact, I know you couldn't handle it. It's not for you. You tell young people today that they can't have something, you already have their attention. What do you mean it's not for me? How do you know it's not for me? It's not for you because if you're going to be a member of the Rebel Alliance, you are going to have to face incredible odds. Do I hear music? Oh, somebody's phone. I thought, my God, somebody's playing an accompaniment for me because I'm really on a roll here. Now you turn to this person and say, no, you can't handle it. What do you mean I can't handle it? If you're going to be a member of the Rebel Alliance, you need to face the fact that you're going to be outnumbered 100 to 1 from day one. You can't handle that kind of unpopularity. Well, maybe I can. If you're going to be a member of the Rebel Alliance, you have to understand history, economics. You have to understand all of these things. You have to understand some things that seem like they're obvious aren't obvious, and other things that are obvious aren't being done. You have to be prepared for this. You have to, through a lifetime of study, using your mad Jedi skills, be prepared to get into a beat-up old X-Wing starfighter and almost alone fly through wave after wave after wave of Imperial TIE fighters. You got to roll into the Death Star trench. You got to avoid the incoming laser blast. You got to pickle off a couple of photon bombs at the last second. You got to pull up out of there and hope that these things go in that magnetic duct and blow up that Death Star before it wipes out everything that you know and understand, and the lights go out and the internet goes down forever. And if you're not ready to do that, you probably need to go back and hang out with the rest of your Obama socialist buddies. And parenthetically, the first meeting of the Rebel Alliance will be at 4 o'clock today in room 202. Watch what happens. Watch what happens if you do that. Because that's really it, right? What they've done to us over 40 years is they've managed to convince us that we're the squares, that we're the control freaks. We're not the squares. We believe in fast cars and hot women and loud guns, and we believe in owning 3 houses if you work hard enough, and we're the guys who are saying, don't tell me how I can ride my bike. Don't tell me whether or not I can have a large soda. Don't tell me what I'm going to have to set the temperature of my house on. You high school student council weenies have done enough damage. Bug off. Step off. You want to run your own lives? That's fine. Don't run ours. You guys are idiots, and you're all power freaks, and there's something wrong with you. You have a genetic defect, and you're telling other people what to do all the time. Back off. And that'll work. People will buy that. So you really come down to basically having to sell people just three things, right? You just have to sell them freedom, private property, and virtue. You'll get there. That's all you have to do. You say to people, well, we believe in freedom. We go, well, of course I believe in freedom. These people have been free for so long, all of us. Thanks to the veterans in the audience today and the generations of veterans who come home and the generations of veterans who haven't come home. We have been so free for so long, we don't know what tyranny is. We think freedom is just the natural state of mankind. We just think everybody's free all the time. There's nothing to do with freedom. Freedom just happens. We don't understand anymore, like you understood, like I understand through my reading of history and the fact that my father was in World War II. We don't understand what everybody prior to this generation or two understands, and that is freedom is extremely rare, it's extremely unique, and it is a little bubble of prosperity and security that has to be maintained at all times by an ongoing force field of committed individual people who are ready to give up the only young life they have in order other people can have freedom. That's what freedom is. And that's what freedom has always been and what always will be. But young people don't understand this. They've been so safe and so secure for so long. They've never been hungry. They've never been cold. They've never been in pain, at least for a few more minutes, the time it gets to get to a medic to them. You know, they've never been without 24-hour entertainment. What do they know about freedom? It's not their fault. I don't blame them, right? I blame the people that have stopped teaching them what freedom is in order to take away their freedom. That's who I blame. So, if you want to market freedom to young people, it's pretty simple. All we believe is that you should be able to live the life you want to live without somebody else telling you what to do. You go to a college today and you say, hey, raise your hands if you want to be left alone. Everybody raises their hands. Now raise your hands if you want to tell other people what to do, or you like being told what to do. Nobody raises their hands. A few of them want to, but they don't. That's freedom. Private property. Private property, that's bad. Yeah, the wealthy people are really awful and they're evil. The source of all the problems in the world. I had an event once where I was at a school, it was a very liberal school. And I said, how many of you out there consider yourself socialists? 7 out of 10 raised their hand. And I said, okay, this is just for the socialists. What kind of phones do you have? I have an iPhone 5. What do you guys got? And they said, I got a Droid, I got an iPhone. Blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, why don't you just bring them down to the front here? Then they said, what do you want our phones for? I said, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to sell them. I'm not a progressive. I'm not going to take them from you. What we're going to do is we're going to take your iPhones and your droids and all that other stuff. We're going to put them in a basket, and when I'm done speaking, we're going to take this basket and we're going to go to downtown Cleveland. We're going to find a pawn shop. There's easily $2,000 worth of electronics in that box. And then all of us together are going to get in a van. We're going to go to the pawn shop. We're going to cash these in for $2,000, and we're going to live up to your philosophy, which is from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And we're going to get $120 bills, and we're going to distribute them to poor people all throughout Cleveland, so bring down the phones. But they don't. You know why? It's because they're not socialists, that's why. They've just been told they're socialists. They've been told it's cool. They're people who believe in wealth redistribution as long as it's somebody else's wealth being distributed to them. But when it comes time for them to distribute their wealth to other people, all of a sudden they become rock-ribbed conservatives. They say, you can't have my phone, it's my phone. I say, I agree. This is my phone. It's mine. I earned it. I get up early and I work late to have the money to buy this phone. It's mine. It's the result of the work I do. Those are your phones too. They're actually your parents' phones, but we're not going to split hairs. So private property is not hard to understand for people, for young people. It's your stuff, right? Freedom becomes, leave me alone. Private property becomes, it's your stuff. It is your stuff. You worked hard for it. You shouldn't have to give it up to somebody who didn't work for it. No one here, no one in this room is in favor of seeing people starving on the streets. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about half the country working to pay for the other half. That's not people starving in the streets. It's your stuff. You should get to keep it, or most of it anyway. And finally, we talk about virtue for young people. You say virtue to young people, they think, you know, my God, not having sex till you're 70 is what virtue means. But virtue is very simple. Virtue is just don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. If you're not a jerk, we can leave you alone. You said you want to be left alone, right? Yep. Then don't be a jerk. You talk to college kids and say, raise your hand if you think it's okay to hit somebody or take their stuff. How many of you think that's okay? None of them. All right. You're a law-abiding citizen. We don't have to have the government watching you. We don't have to have policemen on every corner. You are modifying your own behavior internally. You have virtue. And virtuous people can be free because they will govern themselves. People who are jerks, on the other hand, people who do like to hit other people and take their stuff, now all of a sudden we have to have policemen, and we have to have cameras, and we have to have bailiffs, and we have to have judges, and we have to have prison wardens, and we have to have probation officers, we have to have all that other stuff because they're being jerks, and we're letting them get away with it.